Welcome to What's New Radio, Extra Time, where we speak with employees, managers, educators, or stakeholders in the energy sector about the services and projects at Light and Power.
What's News?
Mr. Blackman, Roger, welcome back to What's New Radio. And thank you for this time and for the opportunity to speak openly with you about Light and Power during the COVID-19 period and going forward. I'm glad to know that you're well. We can't lose focus of health and well-being because the coronavirus will be with us for a long time to come. First, what did you learn personally about COVID-19 and the COVID-19 experience?
Thank you, Jackie, and good morning. Certainly happy to have this opportunity to discuss the COVID-19 impacts and Light and Power's response. I know at the start of the year, I don't think anyone could have predicted that a pandemic would have shut the world down in under 3 months and completely change our way of life. I think the biggest learning for me has been the importance of agility, the ability to rapidly assess conditions and pivot quickly in response is probably one of the most important, if not the most important attribute for businesses today. The past few months have also reinforced for me that you should never underestimate the ability of people to step up in difficult situations. I saw multiple examples of that across the island and certainly internally here at Light and Power with staff quickly adapting to the new norm, developing new procedures, working from home in many instances, while keeping the business running smoothly and effectively. I can't thank my team enough for all that they've done and continue to do to bring the company through these challenging times.
It was challenging indeed, and I commend you as you led us through it. Aside from all the work that I had to do, I'd admit to you, Roger, I did learn the value of family and togetherness during this COVID-19 period. There wasn't anywhere to go, and I certainly enjoyed the discussion and the games and the meals and those kinds of things. Anyhow, let's start with safety. Safety is always front of mind here for us at Light and Power, and so is health and wellness. How did you manage through the pandemic period?
Again, this is an area that I really need to highlight and thank staff for. We've had a really good safety record with no lost time incidents or injuries during the pandemic period, thanks to the diligence of all of our staff during the last few months. In March, we would have implemented a number of new protocols, as did many businesses, to minimize and mitigate the impacts of the pandemic. For example, we increased our cleaning cycles, we altered the crew arrangements to facilitate physical distancing. We would have implemented work from home arrangements. In fact, up to 80% of our staff were able to successfully transition to work from home arrangements. During the period, we would have suspended less critical work certainly during the lockdown period and the curfew period. We brought a medical contractor on board to conduct temperature screening at all of our sites. That started towards the end of March. And we continue to have daily check-ins online with leaders on health of team members. We certainly, as an essential service, would never have closed the business, as the public would have seen our customers. And we were always prepared to respond to customer emergencies.
And I know one thing that you did differently for sure was your customers. You moved customers online. Tell me about that.
Yeah, we always had arrangements in place for online business, but we would have had to ramp that up, step things up quite a bit, sending out reminders to customers, making some adjustments to facilitate payments. For example, we would have worked with SurePay to put credit card arrangements in place to permit credit card payments to be made as well. So a number of initiatives were taken to facilitate customers during that period that they would have been unable naturally to visit front office. So I was just going to point out some of the things that we would have, I mentioned before, we would have had 80% of our customers, our employees, working from home. On site, we would have had fewer people than we normally would, obviously on the operational side of the business. And we would have had a full suite of services made available through the online initiatives, and that has gone extremely well.
At the company's Luminosity Awards ceremony recently, you spoke about the time afforded the company to see challenges turn to opportunities. So I'd like to expand a little on that conversation. What were some of these challenges, some of the solutions, and some of the opportunities that you saw?
Well, as I mentioned previously, keeping our people safe and the public safe and healthy has been the overriding objective for us during the period. We've been utilizing technology to meet our needs, communicating daily with meetings like this, Zoom and WebEx and Microsoft Teams and various tools. We've become extremely adept at using over the last few months. We were commenting at one of our meetings recently that, it was always a bit of a challenge when you were a few months back, like in January and February last year, setting up meetings online felt like a bit of a chore. Now we're all experts at it and it is working smoothly, or maybe even more smoothly than the in-person meetings have been working for us. So that has gone very well using the web conferencing tools, and we're certainly doing it very easily now. We've also been moving our customer services to the online platform, as I mentioned before. And we've been working with partners like ShorePay to expand their services for us, and with new ones like Cape Shepherd to provide more opportunities for our customers.
A few months ago, Roger, if anyone had told us that we would have to record our What's New program from where we live, we would not understand how to do it. But we've been doing that for quite a few months.
Experts.
And doing very well at it. And so thanks to all our producers for helping us through with this one. COVID-19 has now coincided with the hurricane season. Wow. How are we preparing to deal with both of these?
Good question, Jackie. I mean, the hurricane season is always one that we put a lot of effort and planning into every year. Now we have COVID-19 to contend with layered on top of that, so that's certainly a unique challenge in itself. We can't stop hurricanes and we can't stop COVID, so we just need to be prepared. Here at the company, we have a comprehensive hurricane preparedness plan with formal planning starts in March every year. We've already had several hurricane planning meetings across the company, and we've conducted desktop simulations to test our readiness. Things like standard assessments of buildings and structures has either been completed or ongoing in some cases. Check things like our stock levels for adequacy. The COVID has impacted some of our normal preparations. For example, our vegetation management program, which we would have stepped up normally in the months leading up to the hurricane season, that would have been affected or impacted by restrictions during the last few months of COVID-19. We've also had to put some protocols in place for additional PPE in the field, like masks for personnel. We've had protocols in place for how we interact with customers during this period to make sure that we have, necessary social distancing achieved, for example. We've been doing things like re-examining our backup communication systems, which are always important in the event of natural disasters, but that much more important now with the additional complexity that comes with operating during a pandemic. We're also currently working with our regional partners and CARELEC, the Regional Association of Electric Utilities, on what regional support will look like, how it will be coordinated in light of any travel restrictions or regulations that might be in place during this period. As you know, and many of our customers know, we are part of a group that responds during disasters in the islands to help our neighbours. And similarly, when we are impacted, they come together and bring crews here to support our restoration efforts. That is something that we're working together as a group to determine what adjustments we need to make in light of any travel restrictions that might be in place. So that is an added complexity this year, but we're on top of it and putting things in place. And of course, we continue to work closely with the national and regional disaster management teams like the DEM and SEDEMA.
And Roger, as we plan for communicating about the hurricane season as well, you've got to remind people in our tips that when they're planning and putting together their stock and their food items and their canned items and things, make sure they add their sanitizer and things for cleaning and their mask and all that. So as we prepare for hurricane season and we give tips, we've now got to give tips remembering that it's the COVID-19 environment as well. So thank you for sharing and reminding us about all of that. Some 5 years ago or thereabout, we started talking about this 100 vision for 2030, Roger, and no one expected a pandemic. Well, tell me about that. Are we still on track? How are we treating our renewable energy projects? Are they coming along well? The Clean Energy Bridge Gateway at Trent's, the wind farm at Lambert's. Tell me a little about these.
Yeah, no, certainly. We continue to press ahead in support of the island's renewable energy vision for 100% renewables by 2030. Work, of course, is in progress at our Trent site, where we already have 10 megawatts of solar there. We have 5 megawatts of battery storage. We're currently adding 33 megawatts of bridging plant, which will provide power while the island transitions. And at the same time, it will save significant fuel costs and air emissions, given the high efficiency of that new station. At the same time, and in parallel, we continue to work closely with independent renewable energy owners, continue to build out systems under the existing feed-in tariff program. In fact, Today, our customers now have around about 35 megawatts of solar generation connected to the grid, which, when you combine that with the 10 megawatts that we have at Trent of solar, represents about 25% of the island's peak demand during a sunny day. So we've made quite substantial and significant progress over the last few years. We are as well currently in discussion with a number of independent power producers or potential independent power producers who are also working on bringing additional renewable energy to the grid, most of them solar-based. And of course, we continue to work on developing the 10 megawatt project at Lambert, you mentioned just now, as a wind farm project, which is, we're currently going through the planning permitting phase for that project.
What about the 5 megawatt Tesla battery storage facility? How is that performing? Are the customers benefiting from that?
Yes, certainly that battery storage system continues to work well. It's providing fuel savings as it's projected to do. Importantly as well, it's also providing fast-acting reserves or backup power when needed. And this is an important part of the solution going forward because the island will need certainly far more battery storage as solar installations increase to provide backup for periods of climate weather or clouds passing over.
Yeah, that's right. So, I'm glad to have you. So I'm going to ask you all the questions that we would like to hear the answers to. There was a substantial decline in the fuel clause adjustment between January and May, but notably in June and now in July, there's a slight increase. So what's happening in the fuel market and what's impacting the fuel clause adjustment?
Yeah, well, as you know, Jackie, the fuel clause adjustment varies from month to month with international oil prices, and it can also vary depending on the mix of generating plant that we have in service in a given month. Recently, there was as you mentioned, there was a significant drop in international oil prices due in part to the drop-off in demand globally related to COVID-19 impacts. But also there was an ongoing dispute at the time between some of the large oil-producing countries on production. Since then, the prices have started to rise, have certainly risen over the last couple of months. But that is the nature of the oil market. One of the opportunities that we're currently pursuing is fuel hedging, or fuel price hedging, which we have applied to the FTC in the past for, and we've recently applied again to have it as a tool that's available to us to manage fuel prices on behalf of customers. Hedging essentially involves locking in the price of a portion of the fuel that we would expect to use for electricity production in the future, provide a degree of price uncertainty, shield customers from the volatility in oil prices, and consequently the clause adjustment. We believe, as we have for quite a while, that having this tool available to manage price fluctuation will be particularly valuable in the renewable energy transition, as large fuel spikes or fuel price spike create economic strain for the country and hamper the renewable energy transition. So it's certainly an area that we're exploring, and we're working closely with some of our key stakeholders and the regulator to attempt to put that tool in place.
Well, certainly as the months go by, Roger, we'll be hearing more about the fuel hedging. And if you're not here, I'm certainly going to hear from others how that's progressing and what is happening. Roger, thank you. And thank you for your time electronically. I will admit that I missed the interaction with everyone in the office, and our quick fun chats. But, it's going well on WhatsApp, and I like the engagement there too. I think we're doing just fine. So once again, thank you for your time. Truly appreciated today.
Thank you. I appreciate it as well. And thanks for the opportunity, Jackie.
I'm Jackie Marshall-Clark, Manager of Communications and Government Relations at the Barbados Light and Power Company. Connect with us on Facebook or Instagram, BLPC Online, or tweet BLPC, or call 626-4300 for customer assistance. Till next time, bye for now.
This program was produced for the Barbados Light and Power Company by SFA Communications.